And locked in an upright. Turned off at this time. All negativity, hurt, and discouragement should be put away. Should we lose altitude under pressure during the flight, reach up and pull down a prayer. Prayers will automatically be activated by faith. Once your faith is activated, you can assist other passengers. There will be no baggage allowed on this flight. The captain, God, has cleared us for takeoff. Destination, greatness. And I'd like to say that for Washington County, greatness is ahead. So with that, I'd like to give an invocation. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for these words of encouragement. May we use them to guide us, direct us, and use this to serve the citizens of Washington County. May we be on a flight pattern of 2023 that is pleasing and honoring to you. Lead us, guide us, and direct us, I pray in thy name. Amen. Thank you. I'll now go ahead and call our meeting to order. And first on the agenda is Commissioners' reports. Excuse me, approval of minutes. Let's back up a second. Approval of minutes of both January 10th, 2023 and January 17th. I think everyone's had the minutes for review. Both, or you want to do individual? Can we do them together? Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Second. Just the question, everybody was here, correct?
Yep, I think so. Absolutely. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of both January 10th and 17th. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Commissioners' reports and comments. Commissioner Klein, you want to go first today?
I'll gladly start. Over the weekend, this is the beginning of the season where our volunteer fire companies have their annual awards banquet. I attended Morgansville and Clear Spring. I want to thank each and every one of those volunteers and staff up there for their service and what they do for our community. Morgansville has been there a long time. At Clear Spring, they had a brief ceremony honoring the late Zach Reed, which was poignant, and Stacy Soderbeck, I think, became the first or second female president of the fire service up there. And I also attended last Wednesday Washington County Day in Annapolis. I want to thank all those who organized it and the vendors, and our county staff was down there. And it was good to see Delegate Baker, Wyville, Senator McKay, Delegate Valentine, all there, greeting some of the leadership class people and updating on what's going on in the session. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Commissioner Wagner.
Good morning. I also was able to attend the 92nd Annual Morgansville Volunteer Fire Company Awards Banquet. It was very nice. I do thank Morgansville for all they do for the community. Also, the Home Builder Association had a mixer I attended. Just a reminder that that they sponsored the annual home show out at HCC. It's March 4th and 5th this year. I think they're actually sold out of booze, or very close to it. But you know, you all keep that in your calendars, 4th and 5th. It's usually a pretty nice event to go out and see all the vendors, and if you need something done or want to ask some questions. That's all from me.
Thank you. Mr. Kiefer.
Yes, I would just like to also thank the Clear Spring Volunteer Fire Department. I, with several of you, attended their banquet on Saturday evening, and they did a great job recognizing they had a tough year in 2022 with some loss of members, and very poignant. So, thank you.
Mr. Hurry?
Oh, I second and third those comments about our fire department, our volunteers, and everybody that helps with the auxiliaries to make those effective organizations. But I also want to make a comment about some things that have occurred that, make me believe that we are very fortunate here in Washington County to have a very capable, strong law enforcement effort in the county, and we're very fortunate to have great leaders in the County Sheriff's Department. It's a well-led organization, it's professional and well-trained. And I want to say that because, over the weekend, everyone started to read and hear about what happened in Memphis, where you had a city police department that had gone off track, was not well-led, had recruited people that were not fit, were not of good character, were not well-trained, and were not well-led, which resulted in police brutality, which everyone has seen, I think, in the video from Memphis. And that's very unfortunate. But we do have challenges here in Washington County because of outside pressures to fund the police movements and initiatives in Annapolis which are aimed at undermining the authorities and capabilities of our police departments to recruit, retain, and do their jobs. And that's very unfortunate. So I'm very thankful and appreciative, and I think all of our members here are, for those officers that fight for us every day, as well as the families and friends that sacrifice to in support of those officers, particularly when we have this environment, this atmosphere that undermines our ability to recruit, retain police officers. And I just want to give a shout out to them and let them know and their families know that we recognize them and we admire what they do to protect us and safeguard our communities day in and day out.
Thank you. I also had the pleasure of attending both the Morgansville and the Clear Spring Voluntary Fire Department annual banquets. I'd like to also shout out, thank you to each of those organizations, to their many recipients of awards and accolades throughout the past year. Clear Springs, of course, was special this year and a little emotional with the passing of Zach Reed and his leadership there in the Clear Spring Fire Department. Also, last week, Wednesday was a very busy day. It was a day of Washington County and Annapolis meeting with our delegation. Also, I spent quite a bit of my time on Wednesday with the Maryland Association of Counties and through their legislative department, and they're very active monitoring several hundred to be exact, of the bills that are being dropped in Annapolis, and they're aggressively weighing in, some with support with amendments, and there is also some bills that their MACO is flat out opposed to. So stay tuned for more on that. MACO is very active, particularly during the session. So with that, any other last minute comments, anything anybody's overlooked? With that, we'll move into staff comments, and first, we have 5 or 6 staff comments here this morning. First is Kendall and Michelle Dwyer.
Good morning, Commissioners. President Barr, I would just like to personally thank you for those introductory comments. I appreciated them. Ms. Dwyer is not able to be with us today. I think she's under the weather. So this request is for the reclassification of the office associate position. in human resources, and I'm coming to you as Deputy County Attorney, but acting in the capacity of Interim Human Resources Director, for the request to reclassify that office associate position to a human resources technician. And this is an item that has been given some consideration since the middle of last year. With this reclassification, the office associate position would go away, and then the human resources technician would be in a position of providing more substantive support to the various operations in human resources for payroll, benefits, retirement, and risk management. The previous office associate retired at the end of June last year at a grade 6, step 5. That salary was $37,107. The reclassification to a human resources technician would result in a grade 9, step 1 hiring of salary at $42,370. So that is an increase of $5,263. However, with the vacant director and deputy director positions, at this time, there's certainly margin to cover that increase. And then this position is also part of the fiscal year 2024 budget, correct?
Correct.
John?
Well,
Well, it's a
there was
request,
made for
right.
this position. As part of the budget process, if the commissioners approve this today, then we can pull that out of that. And I'll just say that, you know, we've been reviewing this for a while, and we've looked at, as Kendall said, the individual who was in the office associate position retired in June. We've been looking at it from an HR perspective as to what we needed for that department moving forward, and it was determined that this was the best use of that position. Instead of just an office associate, it'll be an HR technician, which will be able to do more across the board in that department. So, so I fully support this recommendation.
Kendall, thank you for stepping in this capacity and taking on another responsibility, but yeah, I'd motion to approve.
Okay, motion and second to approve as presented. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, too, for the opportunity to serve. I am grateful for the time period that it will last. Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work. Next up, we have Leslie Hart. Good morning, Leslie.
Morning. Happy Tuesday. Follow-up from last week's commissioner meeting. You asked specifically about the Faces of Farming and how it impacted social media and the reach and potential that we had. I just wanted to share with you that over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, we've done 30 Faces of Farming videos, and we have had a Facebook reach of about 71,000 people. That means that it actually crossed their path on their Facebook site. Views, now that's actually the people that actually connect and go in and look at the video. It was 26,000. I have additional information on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, but they're very minor compared to the power of Facebook. So we've had about close to 30,000 views with all those platforms for the Faces of Farming. So I believe, Derek, you asked for that, so I give you that back. Secondly, Jeff, I put together an infographic every year that just talks about farming. It's updated every about 4.5 years as the census gets updated from agriculture. But Jeff was talking and said that, you know, he needs the data when he talks to consumers in our community. And we have created for you these pocket size, goes right in your wallet, information all about ag. So we're going to give you those. These are also going to our delegation down in Annapolis as well, so that they have those resources as well. Carmen will hand those to you here shortly. But it just talks about the number of farms, what we have here, and also talks about preservation, which is really important to our community. The last thing that I have is Groundhog Day is this coming Friday. I'd like to give you all tickets to attend. We have those. And if you need anything else, please reach out to me. I just also wanted to share that we're going to be offering 4 tickets for county employees. Is that right, 4? it's six free tickets to county employees. They just have to reply via email. That's going to go out here very shortly. So, thank you. Any questions? Wonderful.
Questions? Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
I think today's the anniversary of your first Groundhog Day, if Facebook doesn't lie.
Well, I know we're all getting the pictures too from Pat.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great.
That was a nice event.
Yeah.
Be all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Tom Brown. Tom?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tom Brown, Director of Emergency Management. A couple weeks ago, I reported that Emergency Management was able to procure automatic external defibrillators through the State Homeland Security grant to be provided to Hancock, Boonesboro, and Smithsburg Police Departments. During that report, I was asked if the Washington County Sheriff's Office had an AED in each of their cruisers, and I advised that they did based upon my understanding at the time. After the meeting, I was contacted by the Sheriff's Office, and I was advised that in fact they had 17, only had 17, and needed 65 more. Those 17 had been provided by the county's Human Resources Department. So the first reason for my report today is just to correct the information that I had previously given you in that report. Whether it was a miscommunication or misunderstanding, I can't say. The second reason I'm here is to explain that, now that that's corrected, is to explain what the current plan is to provide those AEDs from emergency management and make those additional purchases from the State Homeland Security grant. With that said, emergency management will need to create a multi-year project to obtain the number of AEDs required. More than likely, this would be a 3 to 4 year, even maybe 5-year project. I obtained a quote from the vendor who provides the AEDs under state contract, and to get an idea of what the costs were. The last time we ordered them was in July of 2022. So the price has risen significantly. They're $657 more per AED than they were the last time. Each AED themselves cost $2,184.82, and costs for additional pads have risen. And where we were not charged shipping last time, we're now being charged $1,898.03. So cost increases for the AEDs are due to obtaining the chips that run the machine. Shipping charges are now included due to increased expenses to the companies that ship. As I mentioned before, HR provided 17 AEDs to the Sheriff's Department previously. I talked to HR, they advised they can provide an additional 6 more, so that takes the total that Sheriff's Department needs down to 59. So all 59 at today's, right now's current price is $136,075.24. So, and again, I say at this time because we're expecting that those prices are going to continue to increase each fiscal year as the state contract's renewed. So moving forward, obviously in the State Homeland Security grant, the county does not receive enough funding to be able to cover this in one grant cycle year. It's going to have to be over a period of several years in order to get that project completed.
Tom, how long would it, if you ordered them today, how long would it take you to get them?
We've seen between 6 to 7 months.
And if you went by the grants, it's 3 to 4 years or 5 possibly?
Yes, sir. Depending on what the actual increase would be over the next 3 to 4 years, but.
And there's
I think it would take about
59 for the sheriff's deputies?
That's correct. That would put one in each of vehicles in each of the judicial vehicles.
I mean, I'm okay with it if the CFO concurs. I think you might come back and whatever anybody else says, but I think you might come back and give us what your investigation of obtaining the money. I just personally don't think we're 4 or 5 years out by using grants, which is probably the wise thing to do, using grant money. But do we want to risk, I guess the question for the commissioners, do we want to risk another 4 or 5 years waiting on 59 AEDs? I mean, that's my question, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, that's what, when Tom came to me after he made his presentation, and we were both under the impression that all the sheriff's deputies, all the vehicles had them. That's what we wanted to come back and, as Tom said, make sure that you all knew that wasn't the case. And then Tom and I discussed coming up with a plan to purchase those, and that's what Tom's here today about. Yeah, I mean, the sooner we get them in there, the better. I think if there's a way we can do that sooner than 4 or 5 years, I would be in support of that, but
Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't think we try to save a small amount of money relatively that might be at the cost of someone's life because the police cruiser who showed up did not have that.
And plus, what's the price going to be 3 years from now?
I was gonna say, anything we might save might be more expensive down the road, so.
Michelle Gordon, CFO. I just wanted to let you know that we were recently approved for the LATCF grant for $100,000, so this would be an appropriate use of that. And the remaining amount of about $40,000 we could fund out of the CIP fund reserve.
My suggestion is come back with a agenda form for us to maybe to approve something like that in advance of waiting 4 years. Commissioners, thoughts?
I mean, that's fine with me. I'm sort of pro because I didn't know the part you just told us, so.
Where's the one in this building?
Where's the AED in this
Yeah, in
building?
this
There's
building.
multiple AEDs in this building. The closest one to you is going to be in the lobby.
Is in the lobby.
Okay.
Say there's one out in the lobby.
So is there one on the 3rd floor, second floor?
There's one on each floor and multiple.
I would ask John Martirano, is there a reason we would need to bring this back as an agenda item, just knowing that there's already a delay in ordering these? If we could speed that up any sooner, is it appropriate to approve it today since
I mean, I think-
we did have this discussion earlier?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it. I think there was some discussion about the commissioners of whether you wanted to make motions and do things during staff comments, but this particular case, this is not a controversial situation or something that anybody would have any issues with, so I don't have any problem with you going in and approving the purchase and being funded the way that
My
Michelle.
question is, or statement is, she's identified 2 funding sources, and I'm okay with that, because that's usually, we don't have the funding sources.
Yeah, if we didn't know where the funding sources were, I wouldn't want to take any action today, but if we know what they are and you want to take action today,
Well, they can do the work, put the package together. It's going to take them some time to do that, and then bring it back to us next week to actually vote on. Because
I guess we can do an agenda report form.
I'm generally of the view that we don't want to be voting on things here that are not scheduled to.
Right, and
And then that
that's what I thought.
That would be for all 59,
We're only talking.
Correct.
correct?
All 59,
Because
Tom already has a little over 136,000.
One question I have is this obvious question. Do you shop these things? Is this the best bang to get? Is that where we always get them?
So the vendor that we get them through, it's single source, and it's done single source in this county simply so that all the providers are using the same piece of equipment.
Okay, gotcha.
And they don't have to, each machine does the same thing, but they work just a little different, and you don't want the provider
So
to have to stop and
continuity, yeah.
think.
And
how to use
where are they coming from?
Stryker. Stryker.
No, the locate destination.
Well, the chips that I've been told from the vendor come from China. And the reason why the last time we ordered them, it took about 6 months was because the chips were sitting in a container ship out in the Pacific Ocean waiting to make port. So that was one of the reasons I was given for how long it took for us.
And they're made where? They're American made, or?
The chips, I think, were made in China. I'm not sure where the actual.
Yeah, that's the big deal today, but that's causing the possible delay or anything for that.
Yeah, I'm okay with it if you bring it,
All right, so
whatever it takes.
We'll make that an agenda, I'm sorry. We'll make that an agenda item. We'll go ahead and we'll bring it back and make it an official request on a future agenda.
Okay.
If we can do it by next week, we can.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to the CFO because I'm not sure with the grant application and approval process and so forth. I don't know what that process looks like because that's a grant I don't deal with. and how long it takes.
I think we've already taken care of that. The money will come, the money's already on its way to us.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So there's no delay in the grant then? We're good. Okay.
All right, so we'll do that and bring that back next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That will be on next week's agenda. Next up is Susan Buchanan, update.
It's better to wait.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. Here this morning to provide a brief update on the status of the county surplus funding nonprofit grant program. This grant program was approved by consensus of the board back in October 25th to distribute the surplus funds that have been set aside to provide assistance to local nonprofits serving Washington County citizens. Shortly thereafter, the Office of Grant Management created program guidelines and application documents, and that application was released to the public on November 17th, with a due date for submissions of grant applications on December 20th. The Office of Grant Management has received 103 grant applications from eligible organizations requesting $6.7 million in funding. These applications have been distributed to the Surplus Funding Review Committee for their review and scoring. The total amount of surplus funds available to distribute is $1,831,447. The review committee will submit score sheets to the Office of Grant Management for tabulation, and then will participate in an all-day grant workshop on March 8th to discuss each application and determine what their award recommendations will be. Those recommendations will then be presented at a later date to this board for their final approval. Once the final approval is received, the awards will be dispersed to the nonprofits who were awarded funding. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know some of you wanted an update because you may be meeting some folks from
Susan,
nonprofits when you're out and about.
So you received 103 or approved 103 to eligible?
We received 103 from eligible organizations.
Okay,
They
so
have
there's,
not been approved.
but you didn't get like 120 and only 103 was
I
eligible?
think there may have been a handful, one or two, that were not an eligible nonprofit. But
What
the
do you mean by
majority
that,
were.
Susan? Because I know we had the conversation about being on the county's list or not. You're not talking about that, you're just talking
They were not
about,
a 501c3, or they weren't located in Washington County, those types of requirements that were on the guidelines. The community organization funding, I know, has the 108 list requirement that does not have a broad participation in all nonprofits. That was not part of this.
okay.
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay, Jonathan. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Jonathan Horowitz, Director of Department of Business Development. I'm here today to seek a consensus from the board in support of a letter of opposition to go to Annapolis, the legislature. The legislature has again this year taken aim at the Enterprise Zone program. Carmen is passing out a couple documents I wanted you to have, and I will go through these quickly, but they're for your reference as well. The Enterprise Zone program is an economic development incentive tool that we use in Washington County. It's one of our primary tools in conjunction with our Job Creation Real Property Tax Credit Program, which is a local statutory program. The Enterprise Zone program is a 10-year program. It provides real property tax credit and also income tax credits from the state. So the nice thing about this program is the county actually gets a refund on the tax abatement that we provide. And in a lot of situations, it allows us the financing to enter into public-private partnerships. An example would be on Basil Boulevard, when North Point Development created those 4 buildings there. Basil Boulevard was a failing road and needed major improvements to about $6.5 million. And so that was, road improvement was done, and a contribution from the county was our refund from our Enterprise Zone tax credit. So it's a very powerful tool for attraction, and also just for us and financially as we get the refund back. So the legislature for the past several years has taken aim at this program. This year, appears to be a very substantial aim, and they seem to have really good power behind them this year. So there's a large concern from the Maryland Department of Commerce that this may get through this year. And just real quickly, what they're trying to do, is they're going to alter the requirements for the designation or expansion of an enterprise zone. There's some details there, but basically, when we look at enterprise zone eligibility, if there's a census tract contiguous to an enterprise zone approved tract, we can look at the actual details of that census tract, and we can have that qualified as an enterprise zone census tract as well. So that's been very useful for us in situations like Johnson Development Associate on East Oak Ridge Drive, Osblick Workspace across from Fiserv, and Hitachi Rail actually was one of our big wins utilizing the enterprise zone. So I quite frankly would say to the board that Hitachi Rail was a pretty significant battle with Prince George's County, and our ability to win that entity was somewhat based on the use of the enterprise zone program too. So another tool in our toolbox that if the legislature takes this away, we would be, it'd be pretty catastrophic for us.
Jonathan, is how many places using it, and is this all Maryland, targeting all Maryland?
Yes, it's a state of Maryland program, and what it'll.
So everybody, does everybody use enterprise zones?
Yeah.
So
Well, if you have them, enterprise zones are designated based on
Right.
census tract qualifications.
So it's
some of the
more
wealthier counties.
detrimental against us because we're sandwiched between two states too, I guess.
Absolutely, and Pennsylvania has a program called LERTA, which is very aggressive, which we use to fight with here. Yeah, and I'll give you the frank of it. If this passes, the enterprise zone acreage in Washington County would decrease by over 60%. So it would decimate our enterprise zone geographic area, and the remaining enterprise zone will quite frankly be in downtown Hagerstown only. So it won't be that super beneficial for the county total. So yes.
Excuse me, what's driving this in Annapolis then?
I think-
Apparently there must be positives on the other end, and maybe the more urban
I think it's
jurisdictions.
fiduciary. They're just really trying to save money. It's an expensive program, and it costs the state a significant amount of money, especially since they give the counties, a refund on that abatement.
Do we know where Mako stands on this?
I do not, but I would assume that Mako is in opposition of this, as it's a very powerful attraction tool for Maryland in general.
You say, I don't recall hearing or seeing of this at Mako's legislative, agenda items. We may want to reach out to someone at Mako and you and I and pursue this a little bit.
I think the issue there, Commissioner Barr, is that this came up very quickly. I think the legislature's sort of trying to push this through quickly. We found out about this early last week, and the testimony is this Thursday, which means the letters of opposition are due today.
We had some conversation earlier this morning that apparently there's a number of things in Annapolis that are, the train whistle's blowing and you better get out of the way because it's going to steamroll over you.
Yeah, they seem to be fast tracking everything right now. So.
Right.
They seem to be pushing stuff through, I agree.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
And just, I think you mentioned this, so this whole, the hearings on Thursday, there's only like a 2-day window when you can submit these. So in your packet, Jonathan has a draft letter. I believe there's a letter where we're asking the commissioners if we could send a letter on behalf of the commissioners. And I think we reached out to Bruce Bariano, if we haven't, we will, to see if he can attend that hearing on Thursday.
So the draft letter I've included in your packet is from my department, and I'd be happy to draft one from the board as well and pass it through Kirk's department.
Jim, I'm all right with it.
I certainly support the letter so we can pull all the stops possible. Reaching out to Bruce Bariano is good too, but maybe the attorneys for the Manus Canning and Associates for the Community Lobbying Coalition.
Awesome.
This is something that I think affects many of the participants in the coalition.
Yeah, and Kirk and I were talking to Jim Kurtzwell about this yesterday, so, and I know you talked to Jim when we were in Annapolis, so we'll reach back out to him and John at Manus Cannon about that.
So is that a consensus? Or do we need a consensus?
That's fine.
Just one question. If this does pass, you talked about what's some of the impact. How much would it decrease growth in the area, do you think?
It's a tough question to put a number on, but it would be at least 40% decline. We have a statutory program, Commissioner Harvey, called Job Creation Real Property Tax Credit. It's a very, very strong program, a 15-year tax abatement program. It competes with LRTA, which is a Pennsylvania program. It's one of the strongest in the nation. And so we use these two tools in conjunction, depending on where geographically that entity is looking to locate.
And then my last question is, what type of industry or business sector would most likely be impacted by this more than others? Which one?
All except for residential. Enterprise zone applies to any commercial, industrial, or manufacturing development other than residential. It does not apply to residential.
And so everyone has been using this. Okay, good. Thank you.
I'd like to call for a motion that, the way,
Motion to endorse a letter.
Second.
And also on that letter, we're going to put the vote count of the commissioners, whether it's unanimous or what have you.
Yes.
So, okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. 5-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Staff will review the second letter.
Yes. Does that motion, everyone agree that the second motion is a letter from the commissioners? Part of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want,
Okay, I didn't know if we understood that it's actually two letters. It's,
yeah, the
Right.
motion included two, right? Two
Right.
letters.
okay, everyone fine with that?
Yeah, let's keep our letter from the commissioners to one page, hard hitting.
Yeah.
That would be best. Thank you.
Okay.
And just, I'll say, obviously, staff is closely monitoring the bills, and I know everybody else is too. So, when we see these, and again, there's a short window, so we'll be bringing these in probably on a weekly basis, looking for your support to draft letters. And we've already been putting the letters together. We'll have those together before we come in here, but.
I think that's a real important part of the conversation here, because what I've seen the last 2 weeks in Annapolis, it's, the train's already gone through the intersection, and then they're blowing the horn, so.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to throw this out here. I mean, I don't know if this is the time, but while we're talking about bills, not for you, Jonathan, this doesn't involve you. There's a lot of bills in right now. Do we send a letter opposing every bill we're opposed to? Question. Because there's a lot of, like SB 1, and there's 5 or 6 gun bills in. If we oppose any of them, we signed an amendment saying that we support 2A in our community. So do we sign opposition bills? And this might be for next week or the week after, but that's something to think about. Do we sign opposition to those bills?
I mean, as a practical matter, there's 1,800 to 2,300 bills introduced each session, so
we sort of put ourselves on the line on some of these by signing amendments and declarations. The ones we've done that for, do we, I don't say all of them, just the ones we took a stand on that now are going the other direction.
If there is a bill that is of particular impact to the county or that the commissioners have particular strong opinion on, yes, we will put together a letter at your direction and send it.
Yeah, I would
I'm
make,
opposed or in favor.
I would make a request to review any of the gun bills, because we all agreed, at least 3 of us here, to sign that amendment that hangs on our wall, supporting a 2A community, a county. So I would think that would be something, it's up to you guys, but
Well,
that's,
also on police, the impact, the bills that are being proposed that
Against the sheriff.
negatively impact our ability to police effectively, to recruit effectively, and to give the police the authorities and the civil protections that they need to do their jobs. And
I agree.
those are the types of bills I think, from my conversations, almost everyone here would agree to, that we should probably oppose if we're going to.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, thank you. Any other staff reports or comments this morning? Dave?
Good morning, Commissioners. David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services. We are here seeking consent from the Commissioners to apply to the Senator George C. Edwards Fund for additional funding for the CIP build-out of the Public Safety Training Center. And I want to thank, he's left, but Jonathan Horowitz from our office.
He's over this way now.
for making sure that we were aware of this grant opportunity and its potential application or funding opportunities for the training center. As you know, the training center still has an extensive list of CIP funding necessary for its build-out. Our intent in moving forward with this one will be to apply for kind of the centerpieces of the tactical village, which will be the additional site build-out and some of the other products in the central. The grant itself is targeted at $2.25 million, and the specific items we're asking for them for consideration is the additional site work, which is $1.25 million, and then the high bay storage training building at $1 million. And it's likely they may not fund any of those in their entirety, but we wanted to give the next logical steps in what's going to need to be built there to do so. So we have a grant package prepared under guidance of Jonathan and would like permission to submit. And then if awarded, we'll come back and ask permission to accept. There's no funding obligations to this on behalf of the county. It strictly is, there's $20 million this year for the 3 Western Maryland counties that's available. And then each of the next 3 or 4 years, an additional $10 million, which we could potentially apply for ongoing funding. Any questions?
Consensus?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I think it'd be cleaner if you did a motion to
Really?
authorize the application and acceptance of any
At the same time.
grant funding.
Motion?
Yeah, I motion to accept the proposal to submit an application for the, you mentioned 2 items, right, David?
Yes. It's
2.25 and 1?
Yeah, 1.250 and then 1 million, and the 2 specific things are the additional site work that will be required for the central part of the site, and then the high bay storage training building. And of course, as you know, we have 2.25 million already, at least at this point, still committed from the governor's budget for the defensive driving track. So this will start a significant build out if any of this here is brought forward, or if the commissioners were to fund something at a later time.
A motion to approve is stated.
Second, I support.
And it's to accept and to
Yep, to apply and to accept if awarded.
The funds.
apply and accept.
Just a question. This isn't an agenda item, right? When is the deadline for the grant application?
Today.
Today.
That's why we ended up here. That's why we ended up in
I
staff
just,
comments.
only because earlier we heard we don't want to make motions during this, so.
Yeah, and.
Good point.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do. This one was, I should have said that up front. So the deadline was, so we didn't have a chance. But
When you make an affirmative statement like that, you just, yeah.
yeah, and I know that's what this board wants to do, and I feel more comfortable doing that too if there's agenda items, but,
When something's pressing, I understand.
yeah.
And if we want to, and I don't want to back up a little bit, but I want to offer it at least, if the board just wants to apply today because it wasn't an agenda item, and then bring it back as an official package, we could do
Just,
that.
we've already approved, to move
Okay,
it through.
all right, I just wanted to make
We've already
that.
voted.
Yeah, since it's still in discussion, this is qualifying for the fund. This is a qualifying request.
Jonathan has advised me he believes we'll have a strong qualification.
Other comments or questions before we call for a vote? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Any other staff comments this morning that? Hearing none, we'll move into citizens' participation. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, did you have any letters of support for any bills, or we can go ahead and do those, right?
Yeah, I assume the bills that are a result of the county's legislative initiatives, the commissioners support, and we will provide letters in support of those bills.
That's, I assumed that. I just want to make sure the commissioners were aware.
I'm sorry.
So any bills that were put forward by this board, we're gonna go automatically do letters for them.
Would you be able to provide us a list? I don't need it right now, but of those agenda, suggested items we put forward, which actually made it into the bill rating process? Or did everything?
Yeah,
I assume everything didn't, but,
yeah, we can provide,
Yes.
we can provide
Yeah.
that. Okay.
There's at least, Kirk, four bills, gun bills, so I
Okay.
got the numbers of them but I can get with you later on that.
If you will, please.
But I guess for the record, for me, is even though we had presented a list of our initiatives to the delegation, they now are requesting a letter of support for each individual initiative.
Right. Right. for
That's
each
correct.
bill. That's right.
And that's kind of a new process, or have we always done that?
Generally, we've always provided letters of support because they need them when they testify, when the bills are under consideration by the committee. At this point, the bills that have been dropped include the revisions to Title VIII, which regards the electrical board, the sheriff's salary, and those are the only two bills that have been at this point.
By drop, do you mean dropped in queue or dropped from discussion?
I mean, dropped is a term they use when the legislation is actually introduced into the House or Senate. So HB 197 is sheriff's salary alteration. It's been cross-filed with Senate Bill 325, same thing in the other chamber. And then SB 326 and HB 414 regard Title VIII electricians' registration and licensing. That was a result of changes to the state statute.
Okay.
I've got it. Okay, are you finished? Do you have anything else?
Yes.
Okay, I just have a few quick things. I also have a request for a letter of support from the town of Boonesboro. Town of Boonesboro has a number of critical drinking water and wastewater infrastructure projects that they hope to do in the town of Boonesboro. Senator Quarterman is submitting an FY '24 capital budget request on behalf of the town of Boonesboro for looks like 7 different projects, including increased costs for the water reservoir that the county had contributed money to. Now the cost is, I think it was originally 3, it went to 4, now it's at 6, so they're seeking additional funding. So the town of Boonesboro is requesting that the county commissioners submit a letter of support for Senator Quarterman's capital budget request for these water and wastewater infrastructure projects for the town of Boonesboro. So, we have the letters drafted if the commissioners would.
Yeah,
approve those letters of support.
Motion to send a letter of support for the Boonesboro water,
Wastewater infrastructure projects.
wastewater infrastructure project. That just goes to show you what's happening here, 3 million to 6 million.
Yeah. And that's one example, so.
Need a second for that? Is
Yeah,
that
sure
what you're
do.
going for?
Yep.
Second.
Okay, motion is second to support the town of Boonesboro. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, we've already mentioned Day in Annapolis. I just want to thank all of our county staff that had any part in planning that or going to Annapolis and supporting our legislative agenda, including our business development department who put together the booth for the reception. And they did mention while we were there about the Public Safety Training Center. Dave referenced it. That money for the defensive driving track is in Governor Moore's proposed capital budget. Also, I hope that it was mentioned that the governor may be making a trip up here sometime in the next month or so to visit some other areas, but also the Public Safety Training Center. So that was good news. I think the I-81 funding is still it's in the governor's proposed budget moving forward. Obviously, we're going to continue to push for that and try to keep that in there, and also seek money for phase 3. And I guess the last thing, we have an evening meeting this evening in Morgansville, starting at 6 o'clock. So we'll recess today's meeting and head to Morgansville, and this will be the start of us going out in the community on a monthly basis moving forward. So I think that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, John. Now, citizens' participation. Any citizens here this morning? Hearing none, we'll move into Community Legacy Grant approval to accept awarded funding.
Good morning, Rachel Souders, Senior Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management.
Jennifer Kinzer, Deputy Director, Department of Planning and Zoning.
As part of the Fort Ritchie redevelopment project, Cascade Properties LLC plans to rehabilitate Building 305 to be used for non-residential purposes by providing a space for an artisan village to be established for local artists to showcase their work. The County Department of Planning and Zoning submitted an application on behalf of Cascade Properties to receive grant funding from the Department of Housing and Community Development, and they have been awarded $225,000. If approved today, the county will enter into a subrecipient agreement with Cascade Properties, who will use the grant funding for repairs to the deteriorated structure of Building 305. The grant does not require any matching fund contribution from the county. The total project cost is $332,000, but the remaining balance will be the responsibility of Cascade Properties.
Any comments or questions? We are looking for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Oh, okay. We have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to back up.
Yeah. Can we go back to the
Can we back up? There's one other thing that I had written down that I couldn't read my own handwriting. I apologize. Another thing that's been of interest to the county is the Salute to Independence at Antietam National Battlefield. And there was some discussion about whether the commissioners want to send a letter laying out our position to whoever we want to send it to. But I think this board has come out in support of that salute, and so I just wanted to bring it up for a topic for discussion of whether the commissioners want to send a letter laying out our position about that.
I'm certainly in support of a letter. I know several letters have been written. Is there something additional that we could do? Is there?
Well,
Yeah, and that's the other part of it, is to have a discussion about that, so.
I've already reached out to a number of congressmen, including the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee of the United States Congress, the new Republican chairman. It's on his radar. I know the delegation, both U.S. senators and Congressman Trone's office are working this jointly, with Congressman Trone's office taking the lead on it. The biggest issue that the park has raised is safety and the fact that the renovations won't be finished. I don't know if either of those are actually true or not, but I don't know who we'd actually send the letter to except for the Park Service at this point, and maybe to our delegations, representatives, and making sure that they're aware of why it's important and reinforcing it. And maybe there are others, but I don't know if we want to get ahead or go outside of what is so-called chain of command here or not.
I think the delegation agreed last week to send a letter. Were they sending it to the National Park Service?
They were,
We were all on that call, I think.
I thought they were sending it to the congressional delegation, but maybe the Park Service as well.
Yeah, maybe, I don't remember, but I just know that the delegation had voted during their meeting last week to send a letter.
And that's our area delegation?
That's our local delegation.
Okay. And I was speaking of both the senators' offices and Congressman Trone's office are reaching out to the federal authorities on that, so.
Right. Okay.
Just two comments. That's the Salute to Independence is the Sharpsburg Fire Company's one of their largest fundraisers. Not having that event, that puts more stress, more problems on Sharpsburg to raise the funds to protect people in that area. And second, there is also building some opposition to eliminate the luminaries also, so that's going to be coming up soon, so just take note of that. Thank you.
And this is not in isolation. There are other parks that are doing the same thing around the country in regards to the 4th of July celebration, and so that's one of the issues that Republican leaders are taking a look at.
Thank you, Derek.
Do you think it's aimed at the holiday?
So if you would like the staff to put together a letter, and we can talk about who we would send that to.
Yeah, I would.
Motion or consensus?
Just consensus, I guess.
Consensus to put the letter together. Everyone okay with that?
I think consensus is probably fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, John.
I apologize for not
No problem.
my comments.
You're allowed one every now and then.
I might need more than one,
Go
so.
ahead. Next item is 2801 National Pike Sidling Hill Highway Maintenance Facility. Andrew? Morning.
Morning, guys.
Good morning, Commissioners. Todd Moser, Real Property Administrator, Division of Engineering. Good morning, Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works. Again, this is 2801 National Pike Sidling Hill Highway Maintenance Facility. Move to accept the Maryland Department of Transportation's offer of sale in the amount of $14,029.98 to purchase 2.26 acres of property located at 2801 National Pike in Hancock, Maryland, as shown on the State Highway Administration's plat 45840 and recorded in Library Folio 650492. Again, this is just to seek a consensus and/or motion on the purchase price. The actual acquisition of the property will have to come back to the board pending advertisement, public hearing, and then formal approval by the commissioners if you agree to move forward. Normally, we would all do that on one meeting. However, due to time constraints, we thought it was important to kind of break that up this time. Washington County is seeking fee simple ownership of the highway maintenance facility and salt dome structure on National Pike in Hancock, Maryland. When the Maryland State Highway Administration transferred ownership of the section of National Pike over Sidling Hill to Washington County in 1987, the intent was to transfer use of the facility as well. However, the transfer was never followed through and completed. Going out of order here a little bit, the county attempted to acquire the property for $1. However, that purchase price has been rejected. The Maryland Department of Transportation Secretary's Office has extended an offer of $14,029.98, as I mentioned above, to include acquisition plus interest and administrative cost. Fair market property value has been determined by MDOT to be $98,550. Decision on acceptance of the offer is required prior to February 15th Maryland Board of Public Works meeting, after which the offer expires. If the offer is accepted, purchase and closing shall occur prior to December 15th, 2023. Andrew?
So, yeah, I mean, a little bit of history here. This goes back a number of decades when the road was transferred. At the time, I think the working understanding was they thought the salt dome structure was part of the right-of-way. We did some improvements 2 years ago, and in the course of filing for permits and things like that, found out that was not the case and that the actual transfer never occurred, and so that's when we undertook this process. I will say from the Highway Department standpoint, it does provide value. For those familiar with this part of the county, it's our longest, narrowest section. As far as highway maintenance goes, the primary facility is in Big Pool. So if you're working west of Hancock in the Woodmont area, it is a substantial trip back, whether it's winter maintenance for restocking or just general work crew operations in that area. It is convenient to have a facility in this location.
Yeah, motion to approve.
I second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I see in the agenda here, purchase and closing shall occur prior to December 15th. Are you anticipating it taking that long, or is, why?
That,
11
well,
months
as far
out?
as that date, that was the date they gave when we asked the question about this Board of Public Works meeting coming up and needing an answer on, are we going to accept the offer? Then the question was, how much time do we have to close, and is this something as far as funding goes that we need to account for? And so they said, well, you'll have up to that date before the closing has to happen.
On our end, I believe we can bring this back to you within a month to move forward.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor for approval as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
5-0. Next item is 2023 Senator Amos funding distribution. Dave Hayes, you're back up.
Good morning again. David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services, and we're here seeking permission from the Commissioners to accept the recommendation of the Director of Emergency Service authorizing the division to make notification of the grant award from the FY 2023 Senator William H. Amos Fire Rescue and Ambulance Fund subsidy as outlined in the attached document. The total year funding for FY 23 is $339,167. The state of Maryland distributes an annual payment to each county in support of the local fire companies' fire and rescue operations. The county in turn makes a notification of the funding to the eligible fire and rescue corporation. Financial accountability and reporting are handled within the Division of Emergency Services and the Division of Budget and Finance, with the county filing a financial report with the state on an annual basis. So if you look back, the recommendation stands firm, and it's been that way for, I would say, at least 10 years, certainly the 7 years I've been here, where the city of Hagerstown gets the 5 allocation for the 6 volunteer companies for $78,267, and then each of the volunteer fire and rescue companies in turn get a contribution of $13,045. And the same as with the volunteer fire and EMS companies. The county does not withhold the administrative fee that is allowable, so the full distribution is allocated to go to service delivery.
Questions, comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, motion is second on the floor to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir. Next item is Maryland 911 Board request for approval to accept the awarded funding. Sheriff Brian Albert.
Yeah, I'm Sheriff Brian Albert. At the time of this application for the grant, I was the Assistant Director at 911 Center. It's probably something that got overlooked on my part when I submitted it to grants. So this was for the amount of $56,640, and it's for acceptance from the Maryland 911 Board. And it's for a CAD-to-CAD project. And just a little bit of history on that, so just so we know, because we're kind of on the forefront in the state and on the eastern seaboard in this. This started from a conversation with myself and a lieutenant with the state police, and we're like, hey, we ought to share information that happens at the state police barracks through our computer-aided dispatch. So when they had a call, it would show up in our computers, and when we have a call, it would show up in their computers, which you think we'd already have at this time. This thing has, the project's really grown legs. We have a lot of federal agencies involved, Inlets and CISA, and the 911 Board usually does not fund CAD to CAD. It's kind of phone based, but they made an exception on this. This was awarded by the 911 Board, and it's something that's gonna help us in the county. And there's no cost to the county for this funding. It's 100% funded by the 911 Board.
Just for my own knowledge, CAD means what?
Computer-aided dispatch.
Computer-aided dispatch.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very
So
good.
it's entered by the 911 operator that takes the call, emergency communication specialist. They'll take the call, they'll enter it, and it's generated in an automatic system that puts the call out while they're still taking information down.
Good, thank you. I just
Yes, sir.
wasn't quite sure. I knew it was something about interfacing, and I wasn't sure if it was just computers or
Yep.
it was helping with the phone system to do that.
Yes.
Okay. A motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Opposed,
much.
same sign. Thank you. Brian, don't run off. I have something for you.
Okay,
That article on your brother.
okay. I'll stick around.
Okay. Closed, motion to go into closed session for the reasons stated.
Motion to go in closed session.
Motion, we got a second? Second. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Let's take a 5-minute recess.